Okay, well, we did this together the other day. And so if you want to sing along with me, if you're learning the words, then please do. Oh, it's all about the joy, seeing the beautiful in everything. We make a choice in choosing what we see, and it's all about the joy. Yeah, it's all about the joy. Yeah, you could choose to see the ugly side, but then eventually you realize that it's all about the joy. Smell of spring, a bright blue sky, a wintry glow on a harvest night. All of the shadows in my mind fade into the morning light. In the mystery, in serenity, a peace you feel inside. And it's all about the joy, seeing the beautiful in everything. We make a choice in choosing what we see, and it's all about the joy. Yeah, it's all about the joy. Yeah, you could choose to see the ugly side, but then eventually we realize that it's all about the joy. Breaking news, we have a choice to sing the blues or to rejoice. When we know the greatest force is the love that's at our course. It's the energy of eternity. It's showered from our source. And it's all about the joy, seeing the beautiful in everything. We make a choice in choosing what we see, and it's all about the joy. Yeah, it's all about the joy. Yeah, you could choose to see the ugly side, but then eventually you realize that it's all about the joy. Sing along with me on this now. Come on, guys. All about the joy. It's all about the joy. Yeah, it's all about the joy. All about the joy. Keep it going. In your faces, here and now, in all places, in this town. Yeah, it's all about the joy. Hey, it's all about the joy. Yeah, it's all about the joy. One more time, y'all. It's all about the joy. Thank you.
I was spending some time with Panya Deepa this morning, but I found a number of videos online about a special kind of therapy. When you have tremors, they have like this really bad medicine that just destroys your mind. And the doctor said, don't even think about that. So then we were looking at the other kinds of therapy, and there's one, like where they go in your head, and with these long needles, and like if they don't hit the spot that controls it, then it comes out and they go in another place, and it was just like an awful therapy. And then we looked at another one where they use radiation. But the thing about radiation is it has a slow spread. So even though they get the spot, then a month later, it has spread and it's killed off some other good things that you wanted, that you might have preferred to just keep the trimmers, And then we looked at, but I found one last night that now uses uh, sound, sound waves. It's a MRI, and they do it in live time right in the MRI machine, and it only takes about an hour, and then you have an hour outpatient recovery. And with the sound waves, once they detect in real time by suppressing with sound waves, just with frequency, and a vibration, what stops the tremor, and they have you like draw a circle before you start, draw a circle after they think they found the spot, and then and it's reversible because they just give it a little bit of sound wave, and if that stops it, then they go and give a higher temperature sound wave that makes whatever they do, like irreversible. But they check while they're doing it until, and we watched all these videos where a person would go in and they're like this, and in 1 hour they're like this, and no medicines, no side effects, nothing, just with vibration. So, we're moving really into this Star Trek time. I used to love Star Trek. When you go to the sick bay, they just like run something over you, do a hologram out in space, and punch in some buttons and point something at you and zap, and you get up and go. But how wonderful to be living in this time when we're moving away from these draconian kinds of therapies. And so I'm really grateful for just being able to witness, and for people that we love to be able to take advantage of these kinds of therapies. And it was, we were thinking about how hard some segments of our society try to suppress advancement for greed. For instance, before you could get this therapy, you first have to take the medicine. The medicine, they said, is terrible. All the doctors agree. Medicine is terrible. 50% efficacy, and so only 50% of the people benefit. And then of the 50 that benefit, they benefit by about 20%. So what's the point in taking it? And yet they know this, but they make you go through this suffering before you're even eligible to apply, for this other therapy. And so we were just thinking. I was just thinking today, because I started getting angry about, what they would put you through and maybe mess up something else, because they already admit that their medicine messes you up worse, and I began to get angry about it. And then I said, oh, okay, I know a good Dharma talk for today. And even it helped me to see when she was singing the song about, it's all about the joy, seeing the goodness in everything. And I was trying to, I'm sitting here like while she's singing, I'm like, I'm trying to see the good in this, and it's not coming forth, But as I sat there, I did begin to see how the feeling that I had was all of my own creation, and then all of my own. I'm giving it all of its fuel. It doesn't mean that something is not really true out there, but how I respond to it determines the degree of suffering, that that situation causes me. And then we want to blame them for our suffering, And the good news of the Dharma is that we don't have to be held captive by the vicissitudes of life. You know, we are of the nature to grow old. We are of the nature to be sick. Everything and everyone we love, we will be separated from. No way to avoid all of these. He says, so therefore our actions are our only true home. We live in what we think, say, and do. That's our total home. Everybody else lives apart from that. And when we give our power over to them, we feel impotent. We feel pressed upon. We feel angry. We feel dejected. But the power comes in knowing how to fashion, how to form, and even how to uplift our own minds, because they're basically, three ways that things get, things get handled. And so today, I wanted to talk about what the Buddha said about the 5 ways of handling things when they come to the mind. He said, give attention to another sign that's wholesome, if that's not wholesome. He said, or you can examine the danger in what you're thinking and how you're thinking about it. Or he said, try to forget those thoughts by not giving attention to them. Move the mind into another place, and when that comes up, look at some other part of that you can do something about. He said, give attention to stilling the thought formations that came before that. What triggered this outrage or this anger? Was it fear? Was it grief? Was it, anxiety about separation or about protocol? I mean, I looked at the machine, even for this, it's good. The most painful part was the injection they had to give you so that they could clamp the thingy on your head. So they have to give you an injection here and here. And I'm like, how I'm about needles. And so I was just thinking, I'm painting for Panyadeepa. He's got a high threshold for pain. I have a low one, but I'm thinking about, I don't want to see a needle coming towards right here at all. So what was my thought, that formed this thought that's giving me so much, causing me so much suffering? And the last one he said is that when you can't use any one of those 4, then clench your teeth and crush mind with mind. Recognize that you're only as helpless as you decide you are. So you have to recognize you have a choice in how you shall choose to think and move forward. In other words, you decide and you take action. And so that made me feel empowered, that I'm not at the mercy of anything, although I might have to go through something. I don't have to be at the mercy of it. I can choose. We have a way of I think we hold on to some of our problems or the ways we view them to create an identity, for us. It gives us a sense of identity, a sense of who we are, what we are, and it causes us to hold on. Like if I picked up a frying pan and it was hot, I just dropped the frying pan. But I can pick up thoughts about something that's painful, and I'll like rock them, I'll cover them, I'll share them with you, because in some way this experience, we're tied to it for our identification. And we can see that very clearly in some people. We don't like to see it in ourselves. Maybe we won't even look for it in ourselves. It's like, oh, she's just wanting attention. Now, it's not about wanting attention in a general sense. It's about identifying with that as me. That's why the Buddha said you got to get it clearly in your head that no matter what you encounter, what you go through, that your constant affirmation and moving from just affirming it to really looking deeply until you see it. This is not me. This is not mine. I am not this. This is not myself. Though whatever ways you can say that allow you to put some separation between what you are experiencing and uh, and identifying with it as you, because anything you identify as you, you will cling to. So our John Charles said, if you let go a little, you'll have a little peace. You let go a lot, you'll have a lot of peace. Hmm. So there's this way that we replay, um, even past mistakes over and over in our head, until we build up this sense of shame or regret, and it becomes difficult for us to even shape our actions in the present because we're playing this old tune over and over and over and identifying with it. And it could be something that we truly did that was unskillful. It could have been something, but we're not doing it now, or we don't have to let one action shape our whole way of knowing ourselves or identifying with ourselves. And even when the mind, when I went to the doctor last week, and I shared that with you, so I'm not going to go into that story. But he was like pulling out my record over the 10 years that I've been with him, and he was telling how I went from severe hypertension to my pressure being normalized, and he asked, and I refused all the medicines, the metformin, and all of that stuff he wanted to give me, and he asked me what did I do, and I told him I am practicing. He knows I'm a Buddhist, and I said it's the meditation, but it's not just the meditation. It is the meditation, but it's also having to put something into play in real time. It's right at the moment, So I was just noticing who could like drop whatever they were, wherever they were feeling. I don't want to sing a song at all, much less a happy song, because I'm like not feeling happy right now, and I was looking to see who could let go that attachment to that and just enter into the present moment. It's so hard for us to let go of, I don't know what we think. Sad songs say so much. And so we like play this sad song in our head over and over and over and over. So I got to shake myself out of this. I got to shake myself out of this. But if we come up to a happy song, we won't even give it a try. We won't even give it a chance because we're so more willing to wrap our identity around our sense of troubles and grief. And so we fall further and further into this hole. That's why the Buddha said, that joy is an enlightenment factor. All these people trying to get enlightened, you got to come through the gateway of joy to do it. And it's almost one of the hardest things to do. And yet we all talk about wanting to be happy. So part of what allows this joy to begin to arise is when something befalls us. If we can remind ourselves that there'll never be a time when life is simple. That's what goes with this plane, this vacillating back and forth. And you got to find that space, that gap, and abide in that gap. That's what meditation is designed to do, to help you find that gap, and you just slip into the gap. But after a while, once you know where that gap is, you know how to engage it, then you can begin to overlay it over all of your vicissitudes in life, over all of your fears, all of your anxieties, and you will see that it begins to dissolve them in such a way. Or at least the Buddha said, for some of us, these kinds of thoughts may never leave, but they will not invade the mind and remain. Now, he's talking about two things: invading the mind and remaining in the mind. So for something to invade the mind, then it has to enter the mind, right? So that means that thoughts come. That's how we know they're not ours and they're not us, because they do come. They abide for a while and they leave, even when we don't want them to leave. It's like someone has upset us, and we're thinking about that dastardly thing they did and what I'm gonna do to get them back, and then after a while, the mind just says, okay, enough of this. And it starts to waft on, like, wait a minute, I'm not through being angry yet, and we start bringing up another thought to, like, hold it there, And so these are our habitual tendencies. These are the ways that life out here has taught us. And so when we approach one whom we consider wise, and if we don't, then abandon the Dharma and go find something else. Find something that you can have some confidence in, and that you will follow, the process to see if it works. You will put it to the test. You'll put it into the cauldron of your experience, and you'll give it its fair try. And so the thing is that we hold these stresses even when the mind becomes stabilized. There's still work that has to be done with the body, because we are mind body, And so this work that has to be done there to reduce the stresses in our physical body. It's one reason why we are working at developing a wellness center here. It's not like we're trying to provide like just an alternative physical plant, like a body factory, but we're trying to create the conditions whereby we can make more progress in the heart and mind through releasing the fractures and the tensions and the blockages in the body through many different ways and through many different modalities. And that's why we call it wellness. It's not a place for people to come when they're sick, but it's how we can enhance our wellness and the recognition of the value of wellness in putting the heart and the mind in a position to move upward. And this kind of integrated approach to spiritual development. So there'll never be a time when life is simple. There'll always be time to practice accepting that. So every chance we have, every moment, is an opportunity for us to practice letting go and being peaceful. So I started thinking about these 5 things that the Buddha said. Put your mind on something else that's wholesome, or examine the danger in thinking this way, or try not to feed the thoughts. That might be truly happening. They may have truly said this, but don't continually feed it. Give attention to the thought that brought up that thought. Sometimes you can just be feeling fine, and one string leads to another, and to another, and before you know it, you've gotten off on this tangent over here when it was a very perhaps innocent thought about something over here. And it's amazing how the mind, vectors off and starts stringing together scenarios, and then you go like, how did I get over here with this thought? I thought I had dealt with that. I wasn't even thinking about him or whatever. But backing track, what came before that? What was the thought before that? Maybe it's just walk down the street and you pass someone that looks like your sister, and you and your sister don't get along that well. And next thing you know, you're thinking about your sister, and then you think about that thing she did to you in 1952, and then and then it's all right back because the mind doesn't know whether it's real or whether it's Memorex. Whether it's a tape. It just like goes, this is the thought, and the body starts sending a response. And so, so there's going to always be this time, and to remember that no one thing fixes everything. When we find something, we like clamp down on it, and we like try to apply that to everything. But the Buddha says, put things into the laboratory of your experience and see how they work. And if this one doesn't work, he said, toss that one out and get another one. Even when he said to visit the giver of a meditation subject, he's supposed to look at your temperament, and decide what would be probably a good meditation object or subject for you to start with. And then you're supposed to go away and work with it for 3 days. And if in 3 days it didn't work, you're supposed to come back and get another one. But it's 3 days of absolutely pressing. And so we have to experiment, and what works in one moment may not work in the next moment. What works for you in one situation may not work for you in another situation. So we have to have an arsenal. We have to have a whole bag of practices or technologies or ways of looking at things that we can use. I don't know about knives, but when Satama is in the kitchen, she uses a certain knife for this and a certain knife for this and a certain knife for this. I just get a knife. So when I start cutting the bread, I'm shredding the bread, and she's, no, you're using the wrong knife. No. I'm like, it's a knife. She says, no, that's not a bread cutting knife. That's a whatever, And so it's like that. And in time, we learn, which methods work for us in different situations. This is how skill develops. So I came up with some ways that we can try to understand these 5 ways that the Buddha said that we should employ when, first of all, everything can be divided into wholesome or unwholesome, beneficial, not beneficial, useful or not useful. Notice he didn't say like right and wrong in the ways we think of right and wrong, but just this view in relationship to the kind of outcome we're looking for in the future. And so if I want, let's say I've had a breach with my friend and I want my friend back, then I'm not going to be able to keep throwing up not only to them, but mostly to myself what they did. I mean, you choose. They did what they did and you don't want to be friends with them, fine. Go on about your business. But if you want your friend back, then you're not going to be able to keep throwing this up. You got to let this go. And so you decide that this is an unwholesome thought. It keeps me separated from the happiness and relationship with my friend. Yes, it actually happened. How shall I resolve this? I can cover it over with dirt. I can sit down and have a conversation with them, and I can say that how it affected me. Of course, the danger in that is they may not agree with you that they did the thing that you think occurred, and so you have to be prepared for that. What if they say, like, I don't know what you're talking about? Then what are you going to do? Are you going to be more angry, or are you going to just say, well, I really tried, because I thought she could appreciate, maybe she didn't realize that she said it in that way, or at least realize that I took it in a certain way, um, that was hurtful, And so now what you gonna do? No, so you have to have your game plan going in because they may not receive what you bring in. Can you say, but that's okay, I love you anyway, and like really mean it. I just want us to restore our relationship. Now this is where our pride, our identity, our sense of self comes in and prevents so many trivial matters from being resolved, and in not being able to take care of matters while they're small, they become very big matters. So if we think that we have three options, we can remove ourselves from a situation or person. That's one option. We can change it by being willing to do whatever's necessary to bring it into the scope or the parameters that that we want. I have to personally be willing, even if you're not, and then so on the third is just accept, so we can accept, we can change, or we can remove ourselves from the situation. Basically, that's it. There's some variations of those three, and you can break it out into 6, 9, or 12. But basically, it's those three things. So when something comes up and begins to gnaw at us, lay those three options out there and see which one is the most feasible. And you may try the first one and it turns out that was a dud. You might have to go back again. And as we become more skillful at this, part of the skill is really, really being able to let the past slip into the past and do the tough thing that you might need to do in the present moment that sets up the conditions you'd like to see in the next moment. If you say, I just like peace, and you're the only one committed to peace, then it might mean a separation from someone. Like, they don't have to go away mad, but they have to go away. Or, I don't have to go away mad, but I do have to leave. And then resolving yourself to that, and then taking action on that. Now I've taken full responsibility for myself and for my position in this. And this is the way that inures towards peace. Some of the places that we're trying to get into, some of the things that we're trying to grasp and understand, we cannot until we are functioning at a certain vibration that makes it possible for us to hear it. If a dog was in this room, he'd hear sounds that we don't hear. His bandwidth has a greater frequency than ours. And so likewise, we function naturally within certain parameters of perspective or view. And we have to really work at increasing that bandwidth, expanding that. And once we do, everything, we don't have to go and find something. We don't have to go to it's not so much that has to be added that we have to know. It's what we need to just be able to see or to recognize through the expansion of our bandwidth, because it's all right here already. It's all right here. We just can't see it. It's all right here. We just can't hear it. But what it allows for an expansion, for us to have more of a sense of vastness, is by vamping up our capacity for compassion, our capacity for recognizing our interconnectedness, our capacity for just stopping, for just letting things go, our capacity for desiring even peace, our ability to accept even defeat and give the victory to others. And if they feel that they've won and that puts them steady again and they're in my world and that stops rocking my world, I can be okay with that. I'm after the end result. And so counting up the cost is so important. And traditionally, our pennies don't add up. And so he says we need to focus our energy on what we actually can control instead of dwelling on the things that we can't. He said that we should not run away from our feelings, but feel it fully so that we come to know it and come to know whether it is harmful or abrasive or whether it's useful and soothing. It says that we should remind ourselves that anger hurts us. I'm over here being angry with somebody. Doesn't bother them. They don't feel it. I feel it. I see red literally. I get a headache. I get all wound up. I get tight. I lose my happiness, my sense of contentment. And they're like just traipsing along, Every time you see them, hi. So how much sense does that make? So he says you have to remind yourself that anger is like taking a hot coal and putting it to your own bosom. And you're angry because of what they're doing to you. Taking responsibility is the other part. Many times we're angry because we focus on what they're doing, and which essentially gives away our power. Our power to act in the present moment in our best interest or even in their best interest. Sometimes it means then switching up instead of looking at them, focusing on what we could have done better, and how we could have been more skillful, or just cultivating compassion by putting ourselves in their position and saying, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we do something and it slips by unnoticed, and you're like, phew, So what about just giving somebody grace for the minute and just letting it slip by? How much will that take out of you? How much will that take from you? Now I talk about these things all the time because they have to become a habitual way of thinking. When that becomes the first thought that pops up for you, then you're getting somewhere. Maybe the first thought that pops up is the thought of compassion. And with compassion as the platform, then you can look and see what wisdom dictates. So without compassion as the platform, the wisdom won't be wisdom. There'll be cruelty in the mix, you see, because compassion is what uproots cruelty. So it could be a right action, but there is the cruelty aspect in there, you see. But when compassion comes up, you do actually have to apply wisdom, or it can easily devolve into something that is not fruitful and not beneficial, although it was conceived with a compassionate heart. And this is where, taking a responsibility, being accountable, and holding others accountable in the most compassionate way you can is how it all comes together, how the meal is seasoned so that it becomes palatable. We can take the time to identify what the experience taught you. Sometimes we just don't learn from an experience, so we just keep repeating it over and over and over. Sometimes after we get out of it, I get it now. I'm not going to do that again. But the thing about that is you have to know more than about experiencing the relief of when you got out of it. You have to really focus on how you got in it. Because if you don't, before you know it, you're in it again. And all you're thinking about is how you going to get out of it. And when I do get out of it, I'm not going to do this again. But until we recognize how we got in, you know, then, I mean, we're having an issue right now with a raccoon. We can't figure out how the raccoon is getting in, you know, and we've had the trapper out, I don't know, we've had the trapper out probably 8 times. No, the thing is that we want to figure it out because every time the trapper comes, we have to pay him $500 minimum, you know, and already I think the raccoon can smell the trapper because he goes away when the trapper comes. And the trapper can you know, in the beginning we caught lots of raccoons, but we got one little tricky one left, and he like disappears for a while, and then he comes back, and you know, I I you know, we were like thinking about that. Yeah, we were thinking about that the other day. I said maybe we need to try a different trapper. I mean, the trapper is like a family member. He's so familiar with us now, and it's like, oh hey, Panyawadi, I'll take care of it. I know what to do. I think he's come, you know, and sorry, Panyawadi, he didn't come around. We didn't find anything. I said, okay, I'm gonna get me a different trapper. That's I think he's gotten a little too familiar, or just because he thinks he knows. You know, sometimes we can think we know, and something can be looming right here. But because we were successful doing this, we never look just this much to the left. You know, but yeah, just on. It's liability. It's liability on us if the raccoon bites somebody, and they are fierce. They don't play. You know, raccoons. You can come towards them, and they rise up like yeah, and you know, I mean they're really serious. Then they also, you know, they carry fleas. We had a flea outbreak last year. It cost us thousands because the place is so big, you know, that to go through 3 courses of treatment, and you got to do everything. You got to spray, you got to bomb, you got to squirt, you got to, I mean, you know, inside, outside, it was horrendous. And so I think we're coming up on flea season right now. That's why I'm particularly uh, concerned about trapping him. So um, the last time you know, we haven't bothered the groundhogs. They don't bother us. We don't bother them. They're just like big fat rats, but they're like kitty cats. You know, and they move around, but they burrow, and then the raccoon comes through what they burrow, and he's the fierce one. So it's like that. Um, he said that we should remember both the good and the bad, even if something appears, you know, this way now, remembering that the past was not perfect, you know, or if something is not so good now, remember how in the past something was good, and it kind of balances it out. So we just find that middle ground where we can exhale and not cling so tightly to a misperception. Like they were always there for me, you know, and somebody would be telling me about it. So I'm like, well, exactly when was this? You know, because they're coming for counseling or advice, and maybe the person's gone now, and they were talking about they were always there for me, and they were never there for them, you know. Or sometimes they're saying they're never there for me, and I'm like, through what lens are you looking? You know, because they're always there in their own way, you know, offering you such as they are. It was your fault if you decided, okay, I'll marry him and I'll fix him up after I marry him. You know, and so And so we have to remember both the good and the not so good. And we need to create a space that reflects our present reality. Sometimes when we make a change, we make a half-hearted change, you know, and we have to make a complete change. You know, what I like about having an older sangha is that by the time we get old, we just decide, good or bad, we just go with it. It's too late to start over. I'm not even interested in starting over. But you know, when you get a younger sangha, then you start to get all the love affair issues. And I'm like, honey, that was so long ago. I can't remember. I can't begin to give you advice on that. You just gotta love them or leave them. That's it. You decide. But if you decide to don't call me every day crying, if you decide, and so it means you might have to clean house, like take down the pictures, all of these kinds of things to keep the mind, crying over what could have been or over what was, you know. It's like when I, I think I'm retired. I'm not sure. I when I call myself becoming a nun, that was sort of like my retirement, And I'd had an A-type personality, and I had a silent heart attack when I was 35, and so the doctor said, you're gonna have to go on a different course if you want to be around, and I did want to be around, so I quit working at 35, and I ended up going in this direction. But I'm not sure that I uprooted it all, you know what I mean? But I had to divorce myself from everything that I was doing to make that change. I got rid of all my books, all my business stuff, my desk, changed, took out the office. I went to visit someone, and when I was in Texas, one of our students down there, and she still has all her stuff, all her books, all her diplomas on the wall. I got them packed up in case I could throw them in the trash now, but they were all there. I remember in the beginning, I would use it because well, that gives me some credibility, Dr. Panyavati, but that was an identity, you see. And so I threw it away. They said, well, like, what college did you graduate? I said, forget it, because none of the colleges I went to, the universities, gave me, if you think I have any wisdom, it didn't come from there. So we won't even talk about that. And just ways of really closing the door and letting things go, that we say that we let go. We have so much that we can work on ourselves over, that we have such little time, to try to work on others or to fixate on them. And so I want to end right there today and asking you if you take stock of your life this week, um, just thinking about what you think about. We have this way of just thinking about thinking about thinking, you know, and uh, and what it would really mean to you to just let something go, just letting it go, um, just letting it go. I don't know if you have that. If we could close on that song, and I tell you, I'm so happy to have um, Maureen uh, with us because she's a very good songwriter. I love the words. They're Dharma songs, and she was at an open mic the other night. At wherever she was, um, and some people, they're never gonna set foot in a Dharma hall. They're really not. but she takes the Dharma songs out there to where the people are, and she just leaves it with them. But the thing about a song is that it can get in, like the melody gets in, even when you forget the words. You know, the melody kind of sticks, and when the melody sticks, it's like when we light incense. You know, the stick burns out, but the fragrance lingers. And so sometimes when we hear the Dharma in song, the words fade away, but there is just the fragrance, you know, or what it's pointing to that lingers with us. And it can trip our memory in a way. And we can find this is a hack. It finds like the easy ways to bring us along without us having to do so much efforting. Yeah. So trying to get out of our critical thinking mind, you know, because that you can't fix a solution or you can't fix a problem with the same mind that created it, Einstein said. And so it just leaves that space for just that wind to blow through the mind without us actually thinking about it. And we have a breath of fresh air.
When you're standing in line, watching the time go slow, when anxiety builds and your mind fills to overflow, when you can't, sorry guys, Richard usually sings this. When you can't take it and think you're gonna explode, let it go. Let it go. When you're thinking about money and you're thinking about the debts you owe, when you start to get the feeling that the only things worth living for are things you'll never know, when you thinking and it's out of control, let it go. Let it go. Minds go on and on and on. Everything is bad and everything is wrong. But when you look it in the face, it disappears without a trace. Let it go. Let it go. When you want to change all those things that you just can't control, when you want real bad all the stuff you can't have but you want it so, when you get so irate at all the people you hate that it burns your soul, let it go. Let it go. Minds go on and on and on, saying everything is bad and everything is wrong. But when you look it in the face, it disappears without a trace. Let it go. Let it go. Oh yeah, our minds, they go on and on and on. Everything is bad and everything is wrong. But when you look it in the face, it disappears without a trace. Let it go. Let it go. I love that these two know the words better than I do.